straightforwardly named Beer City was called the Sodom and Gomorrah of the plains.
Okay. So a fun place, it sounds like.
Yeah. Okay. So now we do have a main topic tonight, and this is what I'm really excited to talk about. It was a fascinating thing, and Sam brought it up, and it's basically we're gonna call this no man's land, and you'll see if you see later on this video will be clipped out and posted as a separate video. So we're kind of in video mode here, but no man's land. It's the Panhandle of Oklahoma. You know where that is, right?
Yeah, I've got family that live in like the Panhandle of northern Texas, so just below the Panhandle.
Okay.
A lot of like little towns in that area.
There are, and it has an interesting history to why it's even existence, which is pretty cool. And then there's some other strange things that happen. So we're gonna go over that, and I think it's gonna be kind of fun to talk about. So the Panhandle itself is a 166 mile long strip of land extending west towards New Mexico, which gives the state, the saucepan shape. Or it kind of also looks like a hatchet, right? Some people say like a butcher blade.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. It's just awkward, right? It's only 34 miles wide. And it's the only thing separating Texas from Kansas and Colorado. So, what kind of happens here? So it doesn't seem very big. That doesn't seem like a very big lot of land, right? It's like, why would they do that? Why would they just bump Texas up to, Kansas there? Why wouldn't they just extend it out? Do you know the history of the Panhandle at all?
I'm guessing it's kind of like the just parallel. They kind of have a line that they just kind of drew across, and
maybe like a drunk map drawer.
No, I think it's probably no, because Arkansas has a pretty straight line, and it looks like it jumps up there. And if they took Arkansas straight across, that would get rid of that little.
Okay, well, you're close. You're very close. So there's this thing called the Missouri Compromise in 1820. Mm-hmm. So there was like this thing that was going on around that time about free states and slave states and other territories when we were kind of expanding westward. So the United States sanctioned Texas in 1845. The future Lone Star State was even larger than it is today. So it used to go way up there into Wyoming. But by the Missouri Compromise in 1820, there was this, some people call it Mason-Dixon line. That's like imaginary line that went through the America at that time. And when they drew the line, like you said, a parallel. It's 36 parallel. So Texas got it chopped off, but the Kansas-Nebraska Act that created Kansas in 1854 used a different border. And the 37th parallel, which is how they separated the states, a little higher
than Arkansas, then,
which had previously divided the Osage and Cherokee reservations in the Indian Territory. So it left this 34-mile gap between Kansas and Texas. It was just this gap of land that belonged to no territory, no state, no country. So if you look there, Mexico was there. Oregon, and an unrecognized territory there at the top, but no one. That's why they called it no man's land. There was just nothing, nothing there. It was just kind of didn't belong to anybody. So yeah, they called it no man's land for 40 years. It was landlocked island without a government. That's a pretty long time with no government, right?
Yeah.
As a result, the Panhandle spent the next 4 decades as a question mark on the map. No part of any state. Territorial junction as late as 1890. It was officially given the catchy name Public Land Stripe, and thousands of settlers who streamed in legally to squat on the land began to call it the Chimera Territory. But mostly the Panhandle was referred to no man's land. So all these people were like, hey, there's no government. Let's go hang out here. Let's go have fun.
Cimarron territory.
Cimarron. Sorry, I said it wrong. But yeah, it was
there was a movie with the Cimarron horse or something.
Yeah, like everybody was, ready to have a party and have a good time, and it seemed like kind of an unlawful area. It was people just kind of did whatever they wanted. There was no government. It was just kind of, and now they still call it no man's land. There's like a state park there and everything like that. But yeah, so it was like a sinner's paradise though, because there was no law, there was no government.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So anybody that wanted to just have some fun, but in Kansas or Texas didn't, they just went down there and hung out. Outlaws. There was violence. There was mob justice. Citizens, just kind of doing their own thing. Once, I don't know if you know who Carrie Nation's Temperance Crusaders are, but they came through this town or this area and like started smashing up saloons. And so like they were when they went through Kansas, a lot of the Panhandle became a haven for like moonshiners and brothels to get away from a lot of that. So yeah, one boomtown, straightforwardly named Beer City, was called the Sodom and Gomorrah of the Plains.
Okay, so a fun place it sounds like.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy, right? It was just a wild land. I'm sure it's so this is like just like the history of it. So it's always been kind of this weird spot. Okay. Again, it's not very long. 100, what is it? 100? They said 166 miles, and it was only 34 miles wide. So it could be a very interesting place back then to kind of run wild. It kind of reminded me when we went to Joker's Bar. It was kind of wild there.
A little wild, yeah. Run by a wild person too.
Yeah. Someone in the chat says libertarian utopia. Yeah, it's amazing kind of what happens, right? So there was a question like, here's your Cimarron, America's most neighborly county. So today, the tip of Oklahoma, that county, the very end of that panhandle is the state's least populous county, Cimarron County. Cimarron is the only county in the nation that borders counties in a hard to believe 5 different states. So like it borders Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Texas, and of course, Oklahoma. It is also the site of Black Mesa, the state's highest point, and a rugged wilderness full of surprises, dinosaur bones, ghost towns, wagon tracks from the Santa Fe Trail. Today, that land nobody wanted is a surprisingly great road trip destination. So you can drive through there and you can find dinosaur bones. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So this is the very tip of that place. So this is where all the craziness happened.
Okay.
It was like the furthest
you could get before you're out in the actual wilderness.
Yeah, it sounds like it was kind of like the highest point, right? You could hide in the mountains if you are an outlaw. You can, find. So there's ghost towns here that used to be probably a fun place. Interesting. So yeah, family trip.
Yeah.
So if you want to go there today, yeah, you can check those places out. However, be aware, because today there are some weird things happening. There's a state park called Beaver Dunes, and some believe there's a shaman's portal there. Beaver Dunes Park is known as Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle. People just because of strange experiences that have occurred here over the years, Oklahoma is undoubtedly one of the creepiest urban legends in Oklahoma. So people go to these dunes, they hang out, they drive, dune buggies or something, and a lot of people or go hiking or they camp, and when they're not really supposed to camp overnight, and they go they disappear. It's kind of over there in like Beaver, Oklahoma. It's 300 acres of sand, and they still call it no man's land. Okay. But yeah, so like a lot of people go missing here, and the area, the people, the citizens of this small area, they are very aware of this, so they don't want you going there at night.
So what is a shaman's portal? What does that mean?
So a shaman is like like Native Americans, they had, how some people have priests or it's kind of like that. Like it's their person who speaks to the gods.
Yeah, no, I know that, but like, what is the portal part of it?
He had a portal, and
he could like transport people to like other
different worlds,
universes or something.
Yeah, pretty. I'm not a portal expert.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, maybe you would go to different multiverses, or maybe you go somewhere and see your family members that have passed away. Or...
It's true. I don't know why I'm asking you. I can just go check it out.
You could drive there. A lot of people say, it's a road trip. Let's do it. So this all started, though, way before us Americans were even in the area. The park's paranormal history dates back to the 1500s, when men traveling with the explorer Colorado disappeared in the dunes with bizarre flashes of what seemed like green lightning. Now, in Oklahoma, there's a lot of tornadoes, right? And they say with there's tornadoes, there's usually green in the sky.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe they saw that. But yeah, Colorado, he was an explorer. He's a conquistador. He kind of went the Spanish route from around California up through Mexico, and he did come over on this side of the world, and he had people missing. Native Americans tried warning Colorado about the perils of the dunes, as they had been avoiding the area for centuries. So even the Native Americans, even though they probably had a shaman, they didn't like going over to the dunes. He lost several men in an instant, like because he didn't heed the warnings. He recorded the events and the details in his journal, but it wasn't really revealed until centuries later. So he never really talked about it, but he had men disappear in there. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Does Alaska Jeff, does shaman count as a travel agent? He could. Yeah, he could.
To other worlds, yeah.
Yeah. So over the years, though, since Colorado was over there, many more lives have been lost to these eerie but beautiful dunes without explanation. It's become known as Oklahoma's, like I said, Bermuda's Triangle, Shaman's Portal, whatever you want to call it. Thought many to be a literal portal in the sand dunes. So the Shaman's Portal title was coined by the natives, and the place has been suspected of string of disappearances from fateful expeditions to this very day. As time went on, less and less of these disappearances have been verified, and none, in fact, proven to be any connection to alleged portal. So maybe there's not really one out there. Though the combination of history, superstition here is enough to deter many from staying too far in. So maybe go on the edge if you're going to travel there. Anybody in the chat? Some locals report that they have encountered military excavation sites under the cover of darkness. Now, there was another article where they were talking about there were people who live on the outside of these dunes, and they would supposedly see people like digging holes or digging stuff out there at dark. Dr. Mark Thatcher at Oklahoma State University, archaeologist, spent 3 years in the 90s studying the area before suited individuals of the military credentials shut his operation down. So military didn't even want him out there digging. That's pretty interesting.
Kind of weird.
So here we go. This is this panhandle, right? It's got some mysterious shaman portals. It's got weird cover-up military dig sites. It's got a sinner's paradise. It sounds like a fun place.
Yeah. Sounds like a place for things to go if you don't want them to be around anymore.
Yeah, you pretty much, right?
Sometimes you gotta clinch, man.
So love it ever after. Oh well, yeah, this is wilder than Florida. Yeah, it is.
I don't know, man. Florida's got some wild stuff.
They have a panhandle too.
They do, yeah.
I would be curious how that one started as well, because it's weird. Someone mentioned in the chat earlier, it's weird how states come up with these little weird pockets of land because either someone was too drunk when they're drawing the lines, or they're making the maps, or there was some conflict, a battle, or disagreement among other states that they had to split our country. It's weird how that all happened, right? I wonder how many others.
There was a History Channel show called "How the States Got Their Shapes."
Okay, all right.
About, like weird little things that.
I wonder.
Bump. There's like straight lines and then like a little bump, and it was because of some community that wanted to be in North Carolina instead of South Carolina or something like that. And why is there like a Virginia and a West Virginia and all that stuff? It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and think about this, like many of our states have different shapes, and they're not all squared. And it'd just be fascinating to know what happened. And some people think, oh, it's from rivers and stuff, but no. I mean, I think there's even a spot in Ohio where Michigan and Ohio always fight over, and the border changes or did change over time. It turns out the dunes are nothing more than a territory of very aggressive landowners, and people just don't see the.
That's more likely, yeah.
Yeah, they're probably doing this. Yeah.